Welcome to Podcast Talent Coach with Eric K. Johnson, helping you turn your information into engaging entertainment and your podcasts into powerful relationships. Get involved with the show. Send your email to coach@podcasttalentcoach.com. If you'd like your podcast to sound more professional and you'd like to have more confidence in your content, this is where it begins. This is Podcast Talent Coach.
Hey, welcome to Podcast Talent Coach. I am Eric K. Johnson. Thanks for being here again this week. This is where we help you take your information and transform it into engaging entertainment so you can turn your podcast into powerful, profitable relationships. That's what the show is all about. You have yourself a podcast and then you go, okay, now what? That's where this show comes in. It helps you take your show to a whole new level and make it effective for your journey. You can find all of my information, my worksheets, my coaching information, my contact information over at podcasttalentcoach.com. Today, I want to talk to you about turning your podcast into a book. Why is it important to have a book? What can you do with it? And how can that help your journey continue to move forward? If you're like me, you've been working diligently on your podcast. You've been writing your show notes, sharing your content. You have it all out there. And now you have a stack of episodes sitting there. They're getting the occasional download. But what do you do with all of that? How can you make better use of that to get you where you want to go? Well, have you ever thought about taking all of that information and turning your podcast into a book? You know, repurposing your content across various platforms allows you to be seen everywhere without multiplying the amount of work you're doing each and every week. Yes, we want you to be out. Yes, we want you to be visible. No, we don't want you to double the amount of work you're doing. We just want you to repurpose your content. Creating the content, that's the hard part. That's the part that takes the time. Creation takes all of that mental power, that mental energy you're exerting. The editing, the rewrite, all of that eats your time. But once you've created the content, sharing the content, that can be turned into a system. You can create a checklist that lets you share that content on a regular basis in multiple locations and just follow the system. You can make it a really efficient process and multiply your impact without multiplying the amount of work you're doing. And as you repurpose all of this content, just make sure you have a strategy. There's no sense in being seen everywhere if it's not effective in bringing you new clients and bringing you new business and bringing you new listeners. So decide where your content will send your listeners before you start being seen everywhere. You need to develop a strong call to action. As you begin to get out there and be seen everywhere, you need to decide what it is you want your audience to do once you get in front of them. So today I want to talk about 6 different ways that you can take an episode and repurpose it across multiple platforms. And then I have a great guest for you today that's going to show you how you can take all of that great content and turn it into a book to even reach greater heights. So let's start with video. If you're going to repurpose your content across multiple platforms, it's best to start by shooting the video first. It's very difficult. Well, I wouldn't say very difficult. It's a lot more difficult to take a podcast and turn it into a video than it is to take the video and turn it into a podcast. So start with video. This is the format that takes the most time. It makes it possible to use this content across many platforms in many different forms. Now, you start thinking about video and you think, oh, I don't have time for that. All the editing and all of that nonsense. It doesn't need to be highly produced. All right, let's start with that. It doesn't have to be a Hollywood movie. You can just simply shoot video of you recording your show and use that. If you want to spice it up a little bit, add some graphics, add a lower third, add some features, add some drop-ins. But don't make it too complicated. Our goal is not to increase the amount of work you're doing. Our goal is to create multiple forms of your content. So if you want to spice it up a little bit, you can add some graphics. But it doesn't need to be highly produced. It can just be you in front of a microphone recording your episode. And then share that on YouTube. That's the obvious place for your video. But you can also use that video on your website, on your social media, in your newsletter. There's various ways you can repurpose that video. So get out and share it and make it available. So now you have your video. You can strip the audio from that video and use that as the podcast. So it's just like you're recording the podcast as you normally would. You just shoot video of you doing that and use the audio. And now you don't need to go in and re-record the podcast. You just use the audio from the video. Now, if you don't start with video, if you say, yeah, I got a face for radio, I'm not doing video, that's okay. If you don't want to start with video, you can simply start right here at this point and record your audio podcast as you always do. Just record your show. Either way works. When you do video and you record on Zoom, that platform records both video and audio, makes it super easy to use. I know audiophiles are going to say, oh, the audio quality is... And yeah, okay, you lose a little fidelity. If you have dog ears, you can hear that. I can't hear it. You do what's best for you. But Zoom makes it easy for you to use the audio on your podcast and the video on your video, and it's all good. So that's one way. Many audio editing software programs allow you to import the video, and it will automatically strip the audio for you. I use Hindenburg, and it does that. It makes it super easy to repurpose your video without having to record the audio a second time. So now you have your video and you have your audio. Now let's turn it into text. Now that you have your show recorded, you can take your notes and turn that into a blog post, or you can have your show transcribed and turn that into a blog post. Now your show notes, take those and post them over on your website as a blog post. You just have to build it out a little bit more. Flesh out your notes a bit so it's more than just an outline. Add some meat to the bone and really make it a captivating blog post. But the other option is to just have your show transcribed, and there are various services that will do it using automation. They're a little sketchy. They're about 90% good. So this choice takes a little more proofreading, a little more editing on your part, or you could go full in and hire a virtual assistant who can transcribe your show for you. There's transcription services out there. Either way, it gives you a lot of written content that you can share elsewhere. So now we have a video, we have a podcast, we have a blog post. Now that we have all of that, we can share little bits of it on social media. You can use clips of your video or your audio on social media, your blog post and your show notes. Those can be turned into graphics or just social posts overall. And you're now out there taking the same content and repurposing that on social media, and you're getting seen there. And your show notes can be used for your daily emails. I send out an email each and every day. Sometimes I go back to my show notes and I just pull a clip of the show notes and use that as the email. Sometimes I write a whole new email. But if you don't have time to send a daily email, just use the pieces of your show notes. If you have a show once a week, divide that into 5, 6, 7 days of emails and send them out. Now, a lot of people think sending an email every day, they say, well, nobody's going to read my email every day. Yeah, sending an email every day doesn't guarantee that your list will read your email every day. But what it does mean is that your list will see your name. If they're checking their email every day, your name is in front of them. Even if they just say, oh, there's another email from Eric, and they hit delete, my name has been in front of them. They may only read the subject lines that really connect with them. That might be 2, 3, 4 times a week, might not be 7 days a week. They might only read the subject lines that make sense to them, but they see my name in their email inbox each and every day. It's all about frequency to the target. It keeps your name top of mind. My email shows up in their email inbox every day and they see it. When it comes time to get some coaching for a podcast, who do you think they're going to think of? I'm right there in front of them each and every day. Now, I was concerned that a daily email was going to cause people to unsubscribe from my list. Like, nobody wants a daily email. And I'll tell you, very few unsubscribed. It's actually grown my email list. And those that actually stayed are a lot more engaged than those that would see me once a week and wonder where I came from. So email is a great way to repurpose your content. And then as you create all this great content, find partners who can use your stuff and repurpose it and send it to their tribe. You could find other content creators who could use just a little bit of your content on their platform. Maybe it's an online magazine and they could use some of your content as an article in their content. Or maybe it's a podcaster that can use a segment of your show as part of their show. Just find content creators who talk to your niche and create a partnership with them. Those are 6 great ways to repurpose your content. Just remember, as you create the content across all of these various platforms, be sure you have a strong call to action. What do you want your audience to do after they see your content? Your content might send your audience to your website or your lead magnet or your discovery call. Whatever it is, just have a unified plan. Because when all of your content leads your audience all to the same place, you maximize the impact your content can have. Now we've created one show, we've spread it across 6 different platforms, the same content, and all of the content leads everybody back to the same place. Imagine how powerful that could be. It's an amazing way to use your content to grow your business. But now that you have all of these multiple episodes, if you're like me, you've been doing it for years, even if you've been doing it for 1 year and you have 52 episodes right there, you can now take all of that content and aggregate it into a book. Seth Godin does this so well. Seth Godin sends out a daily email, takes his blog post, repurposes it, sends it out as an email, and then when he's ready to write a book, he just aggregates all of the emails and blog posts he's written, and he puts it together in a book. It's phenomenal. He doesn't have to do the work again. So take all of your episodes and group them into similar topics. Turn those groups into your chapters, and then just find an overarching theme and create your book. Now, some weeks may not fit, like, oh, that really doesn't fit the theme of the book, and you leave that out. But even if you find 30 episodes or 25 episodes that go together, you can make a great little book out of that and sell it. Now, it sounds easy in theory, but it's a little more challenging than just taking your show notes and putting it together in a book. And today we have an amazing expert coming on the show who can help us with this process. His name's Dan Janal. He works with business owners and professionals who want to elevate their reputation, set themselves apart from their competition by writing a book. Writing a book's a challenge, and Dan helps people do that. He's a book coach. He's a developmental editor, and he's a ghostwriter. So he can help you in many ways to take your content and shape it into a book. Dan shapes stories and strategies that can really transform a career or business. A lot of what we talk about right here on the show. He's written more than a dozen books. They've been translated into 6 languages, and his latest book is Write Your Book in a Flash. And he also has a podcast. It's called Write Your Book in a Flash with Dan Janal, where he interviews subject matter experts who have written books. In fact, Thinkers360.com named the show one of the top 50 podcasts for thought leaders. He's got a great show. We're going to talk about how he uses his show to drive his business and how we can take our podcast and turn it into a book. He knows what he's talking about. He's a former award-winning daily newspaper reporter and business editor. Dan has interviewed President Gerald Ford and First Lady Barbara Bush. He's an award-winning daily newspaper reporter and business newspaper editor. He excels in making different concepts or difficult concepts easy to understand. And today, Dan is joining us on the show to help us discover the benefits of a book, to teach you how you can find a ghostwriter to help you write your book, and how he uses his podcast to drive his business. Enjoy our conversation with Dan Janal. Dan, thanks for joining the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Eric. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I don't imagine when you were growing up, you thought, man, I'm going to be a book coach. Like, how does that come about?
Well, I want to be on the other side. I want to write the books. I remember being in 4th grade and writing short stories, and being in 8th grade and writing short stories about my friends in school, and then and even in 9th grade, I remember doing plays where I was mocking my teachers. And so, yeah, I've had the bug for a long time, and that led to going to journalism school, where I thought, hey, everyone's going to become an English major so they could dissect Henry Melville and Dickens and whatever. If they don't know how to write, I'm going to be a journalist, and I'll be right in the thick of things and create all these great stories from real life, and then turn them into plays and novels. And I found out that when I was a daily newspaper reporter, I was covering city council commissions, talking about tax rates and garbage rate hikes and who to select as a vendor to pick up the garbage. It was like god awful boring stuff.
Yeah, you thought you were going to be Woodward and Bernstein, and you turn out covering the dog catcher.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my beat, the dog catcher beat. I won an award for it. But
So at what point, how long were you in journalism and writing for a paper before you became like a book coach and helping people write their books?
Sure. It's a long, jagged story, but in short, I was a reporter in Florida for a couple of years. Then I transferred to within the organization to just outside of upstate New York, or New York City rather, and I was a business editor of the paper there. So I'd won awards as an education reporter in Florida, and then I was the business newspaper editor of the paper right outside of New York City. And I interviewed a guy who was basically a PR guy who was a PR guy for every major invention since World War II. And he offered me a job in PR. And that was at the dawn of the computer era. So I jumped ship from newspapers to PR, and I was involved in the launch of companies like K-Pro and Commodore and America Online. And because I was involved in AOL, that gave me an inside track to the internet. And I wrote one of the first books about marketing on the internet. That's my first real book that was translated into 6 languages. And it led to speaking engagements around the world, from Beijing to Budapest, all across Canada, the United States, and Brazil, even Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. That was pretty cool. And I taught an internet marketing class at Berkeley and at Stanford. So I was there at the very beginning, and that one book led to many other books. So a book can really open up the entire world for you. And of course, a steady stream of clients over the last 15 years. So books are really what made my career.
So you had a handful of books out and published already before people started coming to you going, Dan, that's awesome. Can you help me do that?
Exactly. I had a very thriving PR business. In fact, I was one of the first businesses on the internet to offer a subscription service where we put reporters in touch with editors. And now there are a million competitors, but at the time I was the only one, and I made a few dollars, I have to admit, but it was getting kind of boring. And then there were a lot of competitors. So I still have that as a service, but I said, what am I going to do? What's my second act? And I said, well, what's my superpower? Well, I'd already written about a dozen books. And I realized that I know how to write a book. And because I was a business newspaper editor with degrees in journalism from Northwestern, I knew how to write, I knew how to edit, I knew how to help other people write their books. So I wrote a book called Write Your Book in a Flash. And that was my lead magnet book that led to book coaching and developmental editing and ghostwriting for other people.
You mentioned in your PR firm that you did PR for Commodore computers. That was my first computer. We couldn't afford the Commodore 64, so we had the Commodore VIC-20 that you hooked up to your TV as your monitor, and that was my first foray into computers. And I didn't go much further past that until I got a 386 from a Windows computer. So it was a pretty rough start in the Johnson household. So let's talk about ghostwriting then. So after your book coach, you're helping people write their books, and now all of a sudden people are coming to you to be a ghostwriter. And I always thought ghostwriters were things that like the rich celebrities did. They would get somebody, I don't have time to write a book, I'll just have Dan do my book. Do average Joes like me get ghostwriters?
Exactly. You'd be surprised. A lot of best-selling books, or a lot of books by speakers and coaches who are pretty well known on the internet, have actually used ghostwriters. Maybe not me, but I know that they didn't have the time to write a book, or they just downloaded all their notes and said, here, turn this into a book because I'm too busy doing my stuff. So
wow.
One of my first clients was a guy who owned a multi-million-dollar HVAC business, that's heating, ventilating, air conditioning business in Ohio. Yeah. And he needed help. He actually wrote a first draft for a book, and he needed help just shaping the stories and making sure the points were made. He repeated the stories a whole bunch of times. He just needed some help in writing and making it flow smoother. I mean, he had the content, but hey, he's a scientist. HVAC guys really are scientists.
Yeah, right.
You think computer guys are scientists? HVAC guys are really scientists.
Yeah, we had to learn when I was getting my architecture degree, we had to take HVAC classes. And so, all the pressure, the air pressure, the size of the ductwork, that was That was one of the classes that ran me out of architecture school. So that was good. That was like, I do not want to do this the rest of my life. Thanks, but see you later.
Right.
So how does somebody find a ghostwriter? Like, what do you even look for in a resume on a ghostwriter?
Well, you can go to LinkedIn and type ghostwriter. You'll probably come across a whole bunch of people.
But how do you know it's not just some like junior in high school that's pretending he knows how to write?
That's very true. So you really rely on people and ask your friends. So if you belong to a professional association, there are probably people there who've had ghostwritten books. There might be some vendors there who are selling their services for ghostwriting or book editing or other kinds of writing services. So you ask around and you get recommendations. You could go on the internet, and people like me, we have podcasts. I mean, my podcast is Write Your Book in a Flash with Dan Janelle. It's a great way for people to get to know, like, and trust me, and also say, okay, I'll hire Dan instead of Nancy, or I hire Dan instead of Joe. And we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. You know, I'm really strong in business and finance and some wellness topics, but I don't touch things like families or relationships or women's issues. That would be just crazy. So if you want to write a women's memoir, you get someone else writing women's memoir.
Yeah.
If you want to write a book about retirement and financial planning, I'm the guy. In fact, I did ghostwrite a book with a financial planner, and we did it really fast because I knew the topic and he had the content, and it was a great marriage.
Is it acceptable in the ghostwriting business to kind of let the cat out of the bag and let people know what books you've ghostwritten? So I said, Dan, I'm thinking about hiring you. What books have you done? Is it okay for you to tell me that you've written books for A, B, and C, or do they want to keep that on the down low?
There might be some people who want to keep it on the down low, and you respect that because that's their privacy and that's the contract you agree to.
That's a conversation you have with them when you're working with them?
At the very beginning, exactly.
Okay, I got you.
One of the first questions they ask me is like, who owns the copyright? You do. Who owns the right to all the material and the profits? You do. This is strictly a work for hire arrangement where I can be you can acknowledge me. In fact, this is funny. I started a mastermind group for ghostwriters and business coaches a few months ago. And one of the other people in the class in my mastermind group said that she has a clause in her contract that she has to give permission for the author to mention her in the acknowledgments, just in case things up. She doesn't want to be associated with it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or if it's a touchy subject, right? If it's like a political subject or something like that, maybe you just want to do the work and you don't necessarily want to be associated with the topic, right?
It could be a controversial topic like
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Or whatever. You just don't want to, you may not want your name there. But a lot of times the authors that I work with, they're business owners, they're professionals, they're coaches, speakers, consultants, lawyers, doctors, true professionals like that.
Yeah.
And they either say yes or no, and it's totally up to them, and it's totally cool either way.
Perfect.
So on my website, you'll see the names of many of my clients who are happy to give testimonials and the books that they've written. And I don't think anyone has ever said no to acknowledging me or letting me use their material in my marketing materials. But I'm sure there are others who aren't.
So I'm a podcaster. Me personally, I have over 300 episodes, mostly solo episodes, half hour worth of content that I've done. And I've had people in my mastermind say, you should really just take your show notes and turn it into a book. What would be the benefit of me as a podcaster turning my content into a book?
Oh, man, that's my sweet spot question. Thank you so much. Serve it up on a softball. Let me hit it at the ballpark. Yeah, for any professional, having a book is the instant authority maker. People see you in a totally different light. They see you as the authority. They see you as the expert. They see you as the person they want to get to know, like, and trust to lead them from mess to success and make them look like the hero. Some people do that with content from their webinars or content from their TED Talks or content from their blogs or all of it. And the same is true with podcasters. I think podcasters are sitting on a wealth of information, and it's basically turning into digital dust because they have content that they can share out. And I guess the best example of a person who took his podcast and made hay with it is Tim Ferriss. If you look at the book Tools for Titans, it's about, the size of an encyclopedia. It's about 3 inches thick. It's huge. And it's basically the show notes or excerpts from all the famous people that he has interviewed. And it's gold. Every page is gold. So
Wow.
there's no reason why anyone who's listening to this podcast, who has a podcast of say 20, 30, or 40 episodes that you're proud of, you could easily turn that into a book that highlights and shows your expertise and how you solve problems for people who you want to have come aboard as clients. So I think turning your podcast into a book is a major, major benefit for everyone listening, and you should do it. And I can give you tips on how to do it as well.
So let's say I take all of my episodes that deal with interviewing, right? So maybe I have out of the 300 episodes, I may have 40 or 50 that deal with interviewing, and I take all of those show notes and I go to a ghostwriter and I say, I want to write an interviewing book. Here's all my content. Help me turn it into a book. What can I expect to pay a ghostwriter if I've already done most of the work and all they have to do is organize it and make it look pretty?
Good question, but all they have to do is organize it and make it look pretty. It's like taking your car to the mechanic. There's a lot of stuff under the hood that you just don't see. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
A podcast is saying, everyone says, oh, just interview someone and put it up on the internet. And how hard could that be? And you're saying, well, after going through 365 steps of editing, adding music, taking out the ums and the ahs, writing show notes, uploading it to Libsyn and whatever. Yeah, after all that, it's really, really easy.
It's really easy. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me show you some of the steps involved. So look under the hood. First of all, you have to figure out what your business goal is. What do you want to be known for? So if you want to be known as the expert interviewer, that's great. And who are the people you want to attract as your clients? So you want to be expert interviews for this audience. So you are attracting the right people and you're repelling the people you don't want to work with, because some people can afford you and some people can't afford you. Some people you love to work with, some people you don't like to work with. By profession, I love lawyers. A lot of people don't. Go figure.
So it's a lot like your podcast. You need to figure out your target audience, figure out the people that you hope to attract with your podcast so you can turn them into clients.
Exactly.
Okay.
The dollars and cents of it. Basically about $15,000 to $20,000. It does take a lot of work.
Okay.
To work with the host and figure out what their marketing goals are, to actually listen to 20 to 40 hours worth of material, to pay a transcriptionist to turn the audio into print. And then, the way we speak and the way we read are two totally different things.
Absolutely.
Go through this transcript, folks. You'll find that I stumbled over words and I said so many words again and again and again. And you don't want to read that in the transcript. So you really have to be a tight editor to cut all that out. Plus,
to flip that around, that's what I tell podcasters a lot, is that you don't want to read your podcast. You don't want to read a script because you speak much differently than you write, and just reading that text. So it's just in reverse. You don't want to write like you talk because nobody wants to read that.
Exactly. And still at the same time, maintain your voice, which is really important. And then, of course, there's the cleaning up of grammar and typos and whatever. Then there's laying out the book. So I really focus on the editorial part. That's about $15,000. Then we send it to production. That's the copy editing, the layout, the printing, the book cover, the back cover, uploading to Amazon, and all that good stuff. So
Okay.
you're talking about $20,000 to have a book, but think about the ROI. What do you charge your clients? How much is a consulting engagement worth to you? Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? Is it $20,000? And then you can just do your simple math. So if you get $1,000 for a new client, it costs you $20,000 for a book. Well, after 20 clients, you've made your money back. And the thing is, your book is going to be around for many, many years, because we're going to make sure that it's evergreen content. We're not going to be talking about COVID. We're not going to be talking about other things that are timely, who the president is today. It's not
right.
In years. So we make sure that we're dealing with totally evergreen content so your book can stay around forever.
Fantastic. So let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about your podcast itself. Write Your Book in a Flash podcast with Dan Janelle. How do you use your podcast in relation to your book coaching? How does it tie into your business?
Sure. In a lot of ways. First of all, there's the brand. My podcast used to be called Top Business Leaders. Well, why? Because the domain was available. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. People associate me with top business leaders. Well, bad branding, Dan. I want people to associate me with writing their book. So I actually put my name in the title of my podcast. And some podcasters do, and some podcasters don't. So that's a lesson for everyone listening. Write it down. And, it's your money show with John Smith. You're a certified financial planner. It makes a lot of sense. Or just money talks, and you don't have your name there. It's up to you. So number one was my branding. Number two, I use it for client acquisition. I was surprised by this, but I realized this just the other day when I was actually doing some new business proposals, and I had interviewed some people that this person really would have been impressed with. He was military, and I had actually interviewed a couple of people who were in the military who had written books on leadership and commanding, and I knew that he'd be impressed by that. So I included links to my podcast to those people to show that I got him, that I was one of them, that I was, so I think
are the people on the show, the guests on the show, the clients that you're looking to attract, or do you bring people on the show that the clients you're looking to attract would be impressed with?
A great question. I don't bring people on who I think would be clients, although I know some people do that. The first year I did my podcast, I was reaching out to coaches and consultants who had tribes who I thought would recommend me to their people when their coaching clients said, "Hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. Do you know who can help me?" And out of the first 60 people or so, one person recommended me to one person, and that person recommended me to another person, but everyone else, nothing, crickets, unfortunately. So I switched my my ideal client or my ideal interview guest to be people in the book marketing and the book writing community. Yeah, my competitors. I have no competitors. I can't write a women's fiction book, and they can't write a personal finance book. So it's the Reese's peanut butter cup kind of thing. So
right.
To them, they can refer the people who aren't a good fit for them to me, and that seems to be working out a whole lot better.
Okay.
So people who in the book community, whether they be writers, ghostwriters, in the marketing and PR side, in the publishing side, I interviewed some agents. And frankly, that's great. Now I'm on a first name basis with a couple of agents. So when I have my book writing clients, I'd say, "Oh, I know this person who's an agent. He might be able to represent you." So I'm growing my network as a result of doing the podcast, which is another benefit of doing the podcast. So I'm expanding my network. I've done 105 episodes so far, so it's close to 2 full years. So I met 105 new people in my network who know who I am, who know, like, and trust me. Some of whom recommend me. Some of whom forget I'm alive. But it's all for the good in the long run.
Yeah. So you use your podcast to network with complementary experts in your niche, those that complement what you do, maybe on the other side of the fence, and then you can help each other's network grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that joint ventures and referrals can lead to a lot of income for a lot of people. If we all see the tide rising lifts all boats, so we all help each other.
On your podcast, what sort of topics do you cover?
Well, the first, how to write a book, how to get over the fear of writing a book, how to market your book, how the book has helped people grow their businesses. And I always have show notes. I always take like 5 to 7 notes from what people say, and I put them on my website. So even if people don't listen to the entire podcast, they can see real value, point. A lot of people might say, listen to this podcast and we'll discuss, how to interview people and the questions to ask and the questions to avoid, which is fine because that leads to people listening to the podcast. I believe that some people don't want to listen to the podcast. They don't have the time. But if they see 5 or 7 tips, they're going to say, "Hey, Dan really offered a lot of value. This is really, really great. I don't have to listen to the podcast now." And also I take those show notes and I post them all over social media. LinkedIn and Facebook are probably the 2 areas that I really go strong on, maybe Twitter a little bit. So I have a poster of the show with the person's name and with person's picture and name and my picture and my name of the podcast. And underneath we have I paste in the soundbite for that, and then we put it on LinkedIn, and people comment on it, people share it. So I get some juice on LinkedIn. Plus, my strategy is that I repeat each person's soundbite every day that week, 7 sound bites, 7 days. Then I repeat that sequence every 90 days. And I do that 4 times through the year. This is just a formula I made up,
Yeah, absolutely.
Science here, but 4 times a year, it's likely that my interview subject will remember that I did him a favor and put him on LinkedIn to get extra publicity. So I stay top of mind for them.
So if you interview Bob this week, you use the whole week. If the episode's going live this week, every day this week, you'll post a soundbite of it on social media. And then 3 months from now, you do it again. And 3 months from now, you do it again. The same content, you're repurposing the content. So you're bringing people back to that particular episode that may have been published 3, 6, 9, 12 months ago.
Exactly. They're getting
so many podcasters publish and then that's it. Like we're on to the next one. And then the episode they published 6 months ago is never to be heard from again. I love the strategy of going back and getting people to discover older episodes. That's a phenomenal strategy. I haven't heard other people use.
Really? Okay, cool. Well, I like going beyond the envelope. So thank you very much. To me, it makes total sense because it's a way of staying top of mind for them. Plus, it's a win-win-win. I get content. My reader on LinkedIn gets content that is valuable to them. It's not salesy in any way. It's like, here's an interview tip from Eric. By the way, I'm going to have you on my show. So we'll share 7 of your best tips, and you'll get 28 days worth of PR out of it.
So many people say, well, I can't post it again on Facebook. What if they saw it last time? Well, chances of them seeing it last time are pretty slim, the way the news feed goes on your Facebook page. And if it's good, who cares if they saw it again? Like, it's just a reminder. It's like going back and reading a great book again, or it's going back and watching your favorite movie again. That's like great content is meant to be consumed multiple times.
Yeah, I agree completely. The way the algorithms are messed up now in LinkedIn and Facebook is that there's a very slim chance that your entire list of followers is going to see any one thing that you post. Plus, things just scroll by so fast, especially on Twitter. There's a real good chance people aren't going to see it. I mean, back in the olden days on CNN, they would have headline news every 28 minutes, and they'd repeat it, most of the same stories for the next 28 minutes. And if something broke, then they'd replace stories eventually. So one of the great marketers, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now, but Jay Baer. That's it, Jay Baer. Really, really good guy. He was at a National Speakers Association conference that I was at, and he spoke, and he addressed this situation because we're all afraid of spamming. We don't want to overdo it. And he said, the chance of someone seeing your content twice is really, really small because things scroll by so fast. And as you say, if they see it and are reminded of it, that's actually a good thing. We might be in a different place in 6 months than we are today, and we appreciate that message even more because we're further along the learning curve than we were 6 months ago, and it's more relevant to us now, or reminds us of something we should do. So there's no shame in repeating content.
I love Jay. I get his stuff in my email. And like all of the email lists I'm on, I don't read every one of them, but every time I read some of Jay's stuff, I go, man, I should read this more often. Like his stuff is so good and so powerful when it comes to writing content that connects. I think he's phenomenal. The thing I love about your strategy is the fact that you have such a clear strategy that you follow. So many people try and repurpose their content, on all of these platforms, but it's just roughshod. They just put it here and there and haphazardly post it. And you have a very specific, well thought out strategy to repurpose your content. How long did it take you to trial and error before you decided, okay, this is the strategy I'm going to use?
Great question. And thanks for the compliment. Well, I got into podcasting because I was kicking and dragged and screaming into the whole podcasting world. And I said to my mentors, I said, who's going to listen? There are 10,000 podcasts out there. There are 100,000 podcasts. It's so hard to get anyone to listen to anything these days. They're bombarded with messages, blah, blah, blah. Why would I do this? And my mentor actually said, there's only one person you need to listen to your podcast, and that's your guest. And I thought, that's nice, but that's sort of one-sided and not really win-win, and it's sort of taking advantage of the guest. And then I was at a marketing conference for authors, and there was another podcasting expert there who was very well regarded because he was invited to speak to this conference of authors by a major publishing company, and he said exactly the same thing. I figured, okay, where there's smoke, there's fire. I guess everyone knows what's going on here. The guest wants to network with me as much as I want to network with them. How can I add more value? And I said, well, I'll post the tips. And again, I'm the kind of guy who wants to give away the store. So I give away the answers instead of, selling the sizzle. And then I thought, well, if I do it once, how about if I just do it quarterly? It just came to me. I don't know. It just hit me. So there were two parts of that. One, realizing that my key audience was my guest, and the purpose was to network with them. And if you network with them, why not? How can I maximize that networking? And that is by staying in touch with them 4 times a year. So that's how it evolved.
I love it. Fantastic. If I'm a podcaster, what's my first step in writing my book?
Deciding what the outcome is. So if you want to train CEOs on how to interview properly and how to avoid crisis communications and avoid gotcha questions, that's good. You know what you are, your audience, you know what their pain problems are, figure out what the pain problems are. Oh, I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing. I'm afraid of putting my foot in my mouth. I'm afraid that I don't know what to say in a crisis. What do I do if they ask these kinds of questions? What are good answers? What are bad answers? Whatever. So you figure out the 8 problems that people have, and then you go through your content and you just take it out and put the right content in the right place. You can do that. An editor can do that, because if you're too busy or you need an outside person because you're too close, can't see the forest for the trees, that syndrome. So it's always good to work with an editor because they have your best interests at heart, and they have the outside perspective that you need to see what's relevant, to see if you're saying the same thing twice, which happens a lot in podcasts because our guests, we ask the same questions a lot. Sometimes we get a lot of the same answers. Why do you want to write a book? What are the advantages of writing a book? A lot of people say the same things. Okay, no problem there. But you want to get the true unique material, and also decide to play up those people and give them their due. So you have excerpts from the people and you give them credit and such. And then you have the 8, basically. Well, there are a lot of steps here. Let me just make it really easy. You're not writing a 300-page book. You're not writing Tools for Titans. You're basically writing a 120-page book, which is about 20,000 words, because that's all the time that people can devote to a book these days. People have very, very short attention spans. So if you think of the 8 big questions that people have, or the 8 big problems that people that you can help people solve, that's really your first one of your first milestones. What are the 8 problems that people have? How can I help them? What are the content I have that helps them? Then you can take that book and send it to your key prospects and say, hey, I read in the Wall Street Journal you're having a problem with employee engagement. Well, chapter 4 talks about employee engagement and quotes 17 people that I interviewed on my podcast. You might find this valuable. I work with companies and help them solve this problem. If you think we'd be valuable, then I'll call you. We'll set the time to talk. I think that's the best marketing strategy for a book, rather than hoping people find your book on Amazon or at Barnes and Noble. Send them the book. Be proactive.
Absolutely. Do you have tools and resources? I'm sure you do. What sort of access can I get to those to help me write my book?
Great. I have a free downloadable PDF. It's called Turn Your Podcast into a Book in a Flash. A Flash is sort of my brand. So turn your podcast into a book. The link is going to be on the show notes, but if you want to take a long, write your thing out, it's writeyourbookinaflash.com/repurpose, because I think repurposing content is really the key word for the last umpteen years. We create good stuff. We should not let it get digital dust. We should let people know about it today, tomorrow, and far into the future.
Absolutely. We'll put that at podcasttalentcoach.com/flash as well. FLASH. Dan, I appreciate it. You always share some great wisdom with us. I appreciate you taking time to be here, and look forward to connecting again.
Super. Thank you very much for having me be on your show. I'm so used to being the host. I was thanking you.
Yeah, and best of luck with the next 100 episodes of the podcast. Write your book in a flash. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Big thanks to Dan today for joining us on the show. Such great information there. Start using your show and repurposing that content across multiple platforms. See how just how powerful that can be. as you try and grow your audience and grow your business and grow your show. If you want to grab Dan's free gift, How to Turn Your Podcast into a Book, again, you can find that at podcasttalentcoach.com/flash. That's FLASH. Get over there and grab it and start turning your show into a book. Repurpose that content everywhere. Hey, thanks for being here this week. Truly appreciate it. Make sure you hit us up over there at podcasttalentcoach.com/flash and grab that free resource. Next week, we're going to talk about growing your coaching business, how you can use your podcast to really become a powerful coach and grow that business. We're going to talk about that next week. And until then, remember to always tell the truth, always make it matter, and always have fun. We'll talk to you next time.
Improve your show today with Podcast Talent Coach. Let us help you refine your content and transform your podcast. Find free show prep sheets, instructional videos, and details on how you can receive a free review of your content, all online at podcasttalentcoach.com.